गाइस वेलकम बैक। तो वीडियो है संजीव सान्याल, इंडियाज रिच फ्यूचर एक्सप्लेन्ड बाय पीएम्स इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर। अच्छा, ये उनके एडवाइजर हैं, इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजर हैं। चलो वीडियो शुरू करते हैं। वीडियो शुरू करने से पहले अगर आप चैनल पर नए हो और आपने अभी तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो जल्दी से पहले सब्सक्राइब के बटन और बेल आइकन को क्लिक कर लो ताकि आपको हमारे सारे न्यू वीडियोस के नोटिफिकेशन मिल जाए जैसे हम अपलोड करें।
अगर आपको वीडियो पसंद आता है प्लीज लाइक एंड शेयर। चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
This has got to be this Prime Minister. Let me tell you, I've now worked with him now for 6 years. My God, he listened. And by the way, if there's anybody who actually will change his mind, if you give him evidence that whatever his preconceived view is needs to be changed because this is what the evidence is, he changes his mind. Any of you have ever been to the US, you will find that they have terrible domestic airline. I mean, even the worst Indian airline is better than their best. Why does this happen? Because they don't allow this creative destruction thing to happen. Whereas we are allowing this creative destruction to happen. Good guys are coming, bad guys are going. ILO has gone and done this study, or WHO know what they're doing. But a lot of it is just garbage. They made it up because they want to manipulate you in some way. And many of these international organizations deliberately do this.
We've created so many episodes on geopolitics. People have come on the podcast and expressed their opinions. People have expressed their opinions on PM Modi, the current government, the future of India. Sometimes these opinions have been negative. So many people express themselves on YouTube, on social media. And I also strongly believe that most strong opinions are backed by loose information, usually. Not in all cases. In some cases, they're extremely well researched, extremely well thought out. They take into account the other side of the argument as well. And whether you're a pro-Modi listener of the show or an anti-Modi listener of the show, if you're an Indian, if you care about where India's going, or if you simply care about the subject of economics, this is the episode for you. Sanjeev Sanyal works directly with the PM of our country. He's a part of the PM office as an economic advisor for the future of our nation. People like him decide where our nation goes 5 years from now, 10 years from now, especially when it comes to money, especially when it comes to
be good. Agar PM Modi
the growth of our country. This is the kind of conversation you want to listen to before forming opinions about the Modi government or governments in general or what's happening in the world generally. I'm not going to speak too much anymore. I will let you slip into this economic special of the Ranveer show. Remember, if the conversation gets extremely heavy for you, scan TRS Clips, our YouTube highlights channel, where we only upload highlights of each episode. It'll help you sit through the different sections of this episode. If you want to increase your attention span though, you better start meditating. My meditation app level is now live on the App Store and the Play Store. Go check it out. And finally, all I'll say is follow us on Spotify because a lot more conversations like this are coming up very soon. We're a Spotify exclusive. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. This is Sanjeev Sanyal on The Ranveer Show. Sanjeev Sanyal, welcome to the Ranveer Show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
You just told me not to get intimidated by you before we began shooting. I want to know why you said that.
No, people are way too deferential, sir, etc. in these kinds of things. So I said, please don't be deferential.
Honestly, you're one of the widest spectrum of personalities. Like, you have one of the most elaborate kind of knowledge sets. So before this episode, I was actually figuring, okay, should I talk to you about your family's history? Should I talk to you about economics? Should I talk to you about your day-to-day life? I don't know what I should talk to you about. But in saying that, we've never done an economic-centric episode on the show. So I think that's why we'll dive deeper. How would you explain economics to a 4-year-old?
Well, it's about, a 4-year-old may be a bit too young. Okay. But I think somewhere around about 10-year-old, I could explain it. That look, there is a limited amount of resources on this planet. And how do you make sure that it gets used in a way that makes as many people as possible prosperous and that we can all have a good life and incorporate new technologies and make progress? Okay. So how do you arrange all of that is what economics is about.
Okay. What do you mean by resources?
Resources means, there's only so much food to eat, there's only so much industrial production, there's natural resources of various kinds, minerals, water, etc. So how do you make sure that you take all these resources and make sure that they are distributed in the best possible way? And so part of it can be done by government, part of it can be done by markets, and so on and so forth. And how this arrangement works is economics.
Okay. All right. What's a day in your life like? Like, what do you do right now for people who have no clue about what you do specifically with the government? Can you explain your job to them?
Sure. I am an economic advisor to Prime Minister Modi. So, obviously that's about providing economic advice to how to, as I said, run the economy and so on. But since you asked about how my day works, let me say there is no pattern at all in it, because I travel quite a lot. Right now I'm in Mumbai, but I live in Delhi.
Delhi.
Next week I am in New York for a conference in Columbia University. So there's a lot of traveling. Then, as you can imagine, this is a job which is very prone to crises of various kinds. So, you have COVID shock. So suddenly there's a lot of work related to that, which you never imagined. You sort of got swayed off into a different direction. Then there is G20 and these kinds of things that turn up. So it's very choppy. There will be days when I really work very hard, and then there are times where hopefully a little bit slower. And so, and in the middle of all that, I'm attempting to write a book and do other things as well. So I'm one of those people who you have to be very disciplined with this, because you have to keep things moving without there being any pattern in your otherwise in the life. So it's not like, some people say, I like writing a book I have 2 hours designated every day to write. I have no such thing. I mean, all my books have been written, the chapters have been written, in one long weekend I got free and I wrote one whole chapter in that. Like I worked 16 hours, 3 days flat and finished the chapter. Because that's literally the only way I can do it.
How did you get to this point of actually becoming an advisor for the government? Like you would have definitely studied a lot, done a lot, and then I'm assuming you would have been cherry-picked in some form.
So I studied economics first at Delhi University, then at Oxford University. Then I became a financial markets guy for about 22 years. So I was an economist. So I'm not, when I'm saying I'm working in financial markets, I don't mean that I'm a mainline guy who gives out loans or something like that. No, I'm not a banker in that sense. I was an economist, and my job was really to just look at how interest rates are moving, exchange rates were moving, sovereign credit risk, equity markets, liquidity, things like that.
You'll have to explain what these things mean to like school-going audiences.
Fine. You know about the share market?
Yeah.
You know about exchange rate, rupee, dollar rates, etc.
Yes.
So my job was try and guess, roughly speaking, what's happening in these markets, and essentially help my team to make bets on that.
Okay.
So the other word for it is basically calculated speculation. You can call it that, whatever you want. Yeah. So
you basically knew a lot about finance. You had studied it all your life, and you were in a position to be able to predict
so I worked for Europe's largest bank, which is Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
Till about end of 2015. And so this was my job. So looking at global markets,
2014,
not
2015
India, I was looking at
BJP
markets around the world, and basically managing investments, risks, uncertainty, and trying to basically make sure that our banks, clients, and ourselves were able to make money in this and manage the risks of all kinds of shocks keep happening. You know what's happening in financial markets right now. Banks in the US are failing. Credit Suisse is under stress and so on. So these kinds of things happen all the time. So my job was to kind of keep up with all of this. And so that's what I did till 2015 end.
So you had to study for a living in many ways.
Yes, I had to study for a living. But it's not academic studying in that sense. After the academic training, a lot of it is really being imaginative, because unlike an academic where you can go and say something and there's not very much skin in the game, here things would blow up if you got it wrong. So, you burn your fingers a few times, and after that, you have a lot of respect for markets because they can do things that you can't imagine suddenly happen. So that's what I did till 2015. Then, I was sounded out by the political leadership whether I was willing to come over and work in the government. And so I said yes. So in the very beginning
But one second,
Yes.
you're being humble here. I want to ask you why you and why not other people in your position?
Like in any field, there are relatively few eligible people, so to speak. In any field, that's the case. So, well, if you're looking for music director, there'll be a relatively small group of 10-15 people. If you want to do design, I don't know, chips or something, in that world there'll be in the world maybe 10-15 people. So similarly, macroeconomists in the world who have some track record, etc.,
Macroeconomics.
isn't a very large universe.
Microni?
There is
ये
a bunch
global
of
level
people
पे है.
like KV Subramaniam, my former colleague, or Raghuram Rajan, who was the governor. If you add a bunch of these people like that, Vivek Debroy, who is my colleague again right now in the Prime Minister's Economic Council. So you end up with macroeconomists, economists of some standing. It comes to 15 people. So I happen to be one of those people.
And this is why people get intimidated by you, sir. This is the whole intimidation angle. Not that we're getting intimidated. I'm trying to get to your human side.
Okay.
But let's go on. Now I'll let you continue the story.
Yeah, so then, so if you're one of those, for whatever reason, they decide that maybe he might be willing to come and work in the government. Not everybody agrees. So I did.
Because it's a high pressure job, I'm assuming.
It's a high pressure job. Some people may have other
Salary कैसी है?
preferences.
Okay.
As compared to अगर तुम
Working in
private में
financial
कर
markets,
रहे
for
हो.
example, is financially a lot more lucrative than it is for working in the government, for example.
देखा, वही.
And so on and so forth. So there may be a multiple reasons why people may not want to take
वही
it
कहा ना,
up.
private
So it's
sector
a
में
small
ज़्यादा
pool,
पैसा.
and not everybody wants to work in the government. People may have ideological or political differences. That's another reason they may not want to work with a particular government. They may be willing to work with another government. So there are many reasons.
Do you have political ambition?
No, I'm not. I'm a technocrat in that sense. I mean, obviously, I have ideological views, but by and large, I'm an administrator of things. So yeah, so that's how in in February of 2017, I ended up working in the government. But that time, I did a somewhat different job. I joined the government as principal economic advisor to the finance minister at that time. So I was working in the finance ministry, and I worked for 5 years there as the principal economic advisor. So some of your viewers may be familiar with something called the economic survey. So I was one of the principal authors of that economic survey that comes out every year. So that's what I did. And of course,
And for people who are not familiar, you'll have to explain what it is.
Okay, so the economic survey is published every year, just before the budget, on the day before the budget. Those of you viewers who have been prepared for the UPSC or studied economics at university and so on will be familiar with this document. Comes out every year. It is possibly the most widely read document written by the Indian government. And for the 5 years that I was the principal economic advisor, I was one of its main authors. And after doing that, till the budget or economic survey of 2022, I then shifted to the new team as part of the
अभी
Prime
recently
Minister's
आए हैं.
Economic Advisory Council, where I am now.
Okay.
Interesting है, खासकर when you are listening to a person who's in such a high position, at such a high post, कि भाई वो PM के economic advisor अभी बने recently ही बने ऐसे लगता है, पर देख के कि भाई कहाँ से शुरू हुए थे और कहाँ मतलब प्राइवेट सेक्टर में जॉब कर रहे हैं और कहाँ से मतलब अपॉर्चुनिटी जो मिली उन्होंने उसको लिया और वो गवर्नमेंट में आए. और मैं कह रही थी
जहाँ इंटरेस्ट है,
हाँ, तो
उनको इंटरेस्टिंग लगी होगी जॉब.
एग्जैक्टली. जबकि सैलरी वाइज अगर पैसे वाइज देखो वो कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे कम मिलेगा एज कम्पेयर टू अगर आप प्राइवेट करो, पर फिर भी उनको इसमें ज्यादा लगा कि मजा आएगा, यहाँ पे मैं ज्यादा कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता हूँ, मेरी जो लाइफ है का जो पर्पस है वो ज्यादा मीट होता है कि मैं कुछ कर रहा हूँ मतलब देश के लिए, या कुछ उस टाइप से कुछ ना कुछ होगा जिस वजह से वो इस लाइन में आए हैं. तो अमेजिंग है.
नहीं, बहुत अच्छी बात थी. उन्होंने क्लियर किया कि पहले क्या कार्य करते थे और फिर उन्होंने स्विच किया. और कोई भी इंसान स्विच तभी करता है क्योंकि उनको अच्छी लग रही होती है जॉब, चैलेंज नज़र आ रहा होता है, लग रहा होता है कि मेरी एबिलिटीज़ का सही यूज़ यहीं पर ही है. क्योंकि पैसा आप अपने साथ लेके नहीं जा सकते. इसलिए नॉर्मली लोग जो हैं वहाँ जाते हैं जहाँ उनको चैलेंज नज़र आ रहा है, अपॉर्चुनिटी नज़र आ रही है जहाँ वो क्रिएट कर सकते हैं इररिस्पेक्टिव की पैसा मिलता है ज़्यादा या नहीं मिलता। तो
बिल्कुल।
वही उन्होंने डिसीजन किया। इट्स वेरी नाइस। और हम्बली बताया कि क्या काम करते हैं, और मेरे ख्याल से उनका 6 महीने का या एक्सपीरियंस होगा मोदी जी के साथ। तो
उसमें वो बता भी तो रहे थे ना,
हाँ,
वो उन्होंने
starting में बता
स्टार्टिंग
रहे थे
में
कि मोदी
कि
जी
मोदी
data
जी
देख रहे हैं।
ऐसे हैं कि वो आप अगर उनको कन्विंस कर लो प्रॉपर फैक्ट्स के साथ
तो मान
कि
जाते
वो
हैं।
मान जाते हैं।
Right.
मतलब जनरली कहने का मतलब है कि किसी और को बताओ तो वो
जाता
अटक जाएगा कि तू मेरे को गलत बोल रहा है क्या, जो मैंने कहा वही करना है।
मतलब ये है
वैसे
कि मोदी जी डेटा ड्रिवन है, जो हर एक को होना चाहिए।
बिल्कुल
कि जो आपको डेटा दिख रहा है उससे आप अपनी सोच बदल दीजिए, क्योंकि डेटा बोल रहा है।
बिल्कुल।
तो
और
it's very
तभी
nice.
कंट्री आगे बढ़ रही
तभी
है
कंट्री
हमारी।
आगे बढ़ रही है।
यही रीजन है।
Yeah.
तो कमाल है। चलो चलते हैं, मिलेंगे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में बहुत ही जल्द। टिल देन टेक केयर एंड बाय बाय।
तो अगर आप मेरे इस चैनल पे नए हो तो जल्दी से सब्सक्राइब के बटन को हिट करो और बेल आइकन को क्लिक करो, ताकि आपको मेरा जब नया वीडियो मैं लगाऊं आपको उसके बारे में जल्दी से पता चल जाए।